Works for me. What's up guys, Commander Keen back with another Borderlands 3 video. It's been a little while, but I promise it's been worth the wait. I've got something special for you guys today. I've got another mobbing build out that I'm naming Frost Cannon Amara. You're going to have a ton of fun with this one. It focuses on cryo and melee for the most part because I'm stubborn and I still like the face puncher and I refuse to stop using it. I'd like to give a huge shout out to Chibi J Quag for all of his help on stream with answering some questions that I had about some of the mechanics of this build. This build was inspired largely by his cast stab build. If you haven't seen that, it's probably one of the coolest Amara builds that you will come across today, and I strongly recommend that you go and check that out. Now, with that out of the way, let's get in and check this build out. Now, I know that sometimes people like to come in with build videos and just take a look at the skill tree right off the bat so they can get to it playing with it themselves. So I'm going to put one up right there. Should be up there right now. Take a look at it, screenshot it, jot it down, color a crayon picture with it, do whatever you got to do. Keep that, hold on to it, play with it, make it your own, just have fun with it. Now, as far as gear goes, there are a couple specific things that you're going to want to really wring as much damage out of this as humanly possible. And luckily, you're not going to have to go and grind for it a whole bunch because I'm just going to give you the save file and it's all going to be in there. So don't worry about it too much. We are going to be using a URAD face puncher with 14 pellets. Again, thanks to Quag, I now understand that body and mind actually can have 14 instances with a times 14. So a times 7 face puncher works very well, but a times 14 will work even better for body and mind. So try to find yourself a times 14 if you're not grabbing this save file. As far as a shield, we want to run a frozen heart with an action skill start, activate any effects that trigger on shield break or fill. You guys are probably familiar with the shield. I've featured it in a couple of my videos now, I believe. This is probably my favorite shield and interaction of the game in terms of crowd control and mobbing. It's just a ton of fun. And I like how hectic and chaotic it is, so we're going to be abusing the heck out of this to make sure that all of our enemies are frozen as often as possible, so we can really take advantage of the 300% melee boost that we get from melee. I've chosen a Mervtacular Hex for this one. You don't have to use a Mervtacular Hex, honestly. You can use a Piss Grenade if you want. You can use a Generator Transfusion Grenade, preferably a Tracker, is another really good choice, or a Power Siphon, because it helps top your shields up. Just not a ton, but every little bit helps because we're running a deathless build. So I've chosen the Mervtacular Hex for the 500% cryo efficiency. If we are not able to have our action skill up at a given moment, I want my cryo efficiency as high as possible so that without my shield proccing, I'm still able to freeze enemies. Coming over now to our artifact, we're using an Icebreaker Deathless. Thank you to Chadley for providing this in one of his save files for his Frosted Flak build, I believe. I shamelessly stole this from that to do some testing, and it turned out to work way better than I even thought it would. So shout out to him for providing this to the community. But we want this Icebreaker Deathless to really take advantage of the damage output that we can do to frozen targets. This one happened to come with some really good passives. 62% magazine size really helps with the face puncher. Radiation damage is a nice bump to our URAD damage, and area of effect damage is just helping really spread those novas and spread our splash damage from the rest of the build. So these are really solid passives. Splash damage radius, AoE damage, elemental damage, radiation, or magazine size. All of those are really great passives for this. I'd consider this almost a god roll for this build, but I'm sure I could trade off magazine side for some more damage if I really wanted to, but this is a great candidate. Finally, we have the Muse class mod. I am not overly familiar with this one because I'm normally using a spiritual driver with elemental projectors. However, with this build, I wanted to try something a little different, so here we are using the Muse. Now, I've also tested this build with the Kensei, and it does work fairly well, but I just find the Muse to be a little more powerful. That's just my butt dino telling me that. I don't have any math to back that up. If anybody disagrees and has a reason why the Kensei would work better, just drop it down in the comments below. I read every comment and will probably respond to it, and thank you for showing me the way. But till then, the Muse is my preferred comm for this build. So the Muse reads, whenever Amara damages an enemy with a melee attack, she projects melee damage outwards of her attuned element towards another nearby enemy. This skill has a short cooldown. We're not actually taking the Muse for that effect. We're taking the Muse to get the 2 points into Laid Bare for the increased weapon damage, and we're taking it for the 3 points into Illuminated Fist. Now, with using the Eternal Fist all the time, you'd probably be better off with more points into Illuminated Fist than you would be to Laid Bare, but this one provides a decent balance, and I'm okay with it. And again, if you don't want to use the Eternal Fist, you will have less Novas and less crowd control, but you will have better single target DPS because you'll be proccing Laid Bare. This one I got from someone's save file. I wish I could say who. Thank you, or I wish I could remember who, sorry. Thank you, anonymous person who I can't remember, but this is a wonderful role for this particular build. It works very well. Splash damage radius, splash damage, and melee damage is probably the perfect passives that you could have for this. Now, there's other gear that synergizes really well with the skill tree, although it's not perfect with it because this build was really situated around the original gear that I just showed you. But some gear that works really well, of course, with a melee build is a Psycho Stabber in either a URAD or 300x90, Stinger Shields, any grenade with an on-grenade throw, weapon, grenade, and action skill damage are increased by 25% for 6 seconds. Anything with bonus cryo damage, anything with bonus radiation damage, anything with any element on it really is also going to give you a decent damage boost. The Dragon class mod works fairly well if you are not using the Eternal Fist. If you're using something like Reverberation, the Dragon works very well and you can spam it pretty much over and over again. The inspiration again from this is definitely from Quag's Cast Stab build. I don't use the Dragon outside of that, but it is a lot of fun to use with this build if you want to be very action skill centric as far as damage output goes. As mentioned before, the Piss Grenade works really well for single target debuff. It actually works very well for getting the party started, as it were. Just you need to get a kill to really kickstart your damage output with this build. So finding your first enemy, debuffing them with a Piss Grenade, getting that kill, and then maybe immediately swapping over to something like a Murptacular Hex with that 500% cryo efficiency is a really good way to kind of get things kicked off. There are a number of different deathless comms that you could use with this, but I find that the Icebreaker really takes the most advantage of frozen targets, of course, but really anything else will work. Just kind of go through and pick something that suits your playstyle and that you really like, but I really cannot recommend the Icebreaker Deathless enough. If you're looking to go and do big damage to bosses, the Unleash the Dragon and Stinger combo works really, really well, especially with Psycho Stabber in the mix. I don't really use it that much, but it's going to be included in the save file in case you want to abuse it in the same method as the Frozen Heart by using it with the Eternal Fist. Alright, so for those of you that have stuck around to check out the skill trees, let's go through that. We're going to put 1 point into Do Harm just to get some rush stacks going. We're not really using a whole lot of Do Harm because we're not mainly going to be using actual action skills because we're going to be using Eternal Fist. But you can pretty much muck with the blue tree almost however you want in terms of Do Harm and Violent Tapestry. It all depends on whether or not you're going to play with Eternal Fist or if you're going to use Reverberation or something like that. If you're going to use Reverberation or an actual damaging action skill, then go ahead and put 5 points into Do Harm. Other than that, coming over, we have 3 points into Fast Hands because we want to maximize our reload speed. Face Puncher does not have a large magazine, so we're going to be reloading a lot, so we're going to max that out. We're going to max out Violent Tapestry because we're looking to freeze as much as humanly possible. We're going to put as many points into Transcend as we can for that critical hit bonus damage. And we're going to throw a few points into Alacrity because we had some spare, and these are great for helping out that reload speed. Coming down to Ascendant, we're going to take that so we can get the extra 15% of Expedite. Laid Bare, we're going to add a few points into, even though Muse is adding it for us. Again, this isn't entirely necessary if you're going to play only with Eternal Fist. We don't really benefit from Laid Bare with Eternal Fist because Eternal Fist doesn't actually deal damage to the enemy, so we're not benefiting from Laid Bare there. The exception to that rule is bosses and large enemies that are too big to actually be grasped. The game will give you kind of like a burst effect on there, and they will deal damage. So I throw points into Laid Bare so that I don't have to come back and respec when I go to a boss. So I recommend throwing as many points in as you can. Wrath for increased gun damage. Awakening to maximize the effectiveness of those rush stacks for freezing. And of course Avatar so we can get an extra instance of our action skill to keep us being able to spam it, and therefore spamming our ASS Novas. Moving over to the red tree, you can see we have 4 out of 5 in Anima, 1 out of 5 into Infusion to help us get that extra element. We've got 4 out of 5 in Tempest. Normally I'd put 5 out of 5 in both of these for elemental builds, but in this instance we don't have the extra points to spare, so this is just how it's got to be. We're taking full points in Illuminated Fists, and again we've got a bonus thanks to our Muse. We just come down far enough to unlock Eternal Fist, and then 1 point into Dread is actually kind of nice because we're going to get a little bit of a damage boost, and we're going to be able to run this very efficiently to keep our gun topped up at all times and really almost have free ammo by the end of the day. As far as the green tree goes, the green tree gets nothing. The green tree. Now over on the purple tree is where the magic happens. We have 5 out of 5 in a no mistakes in nature because we're going to be inflicting status effects on all enemies constantly. So we want that full melee boost. Increased speed, or increased projectile speed and splash damage with heavy rain. Splash damage is huge on this build, so it was a natural choice. Don't worry about ebb and flow, you don't need it. Unweave the Rainbow. Amara deals bonus damage of her attuned element whenever she deals melee damage or splash damage to frozen enemies. We're going to be dealing all kinds of damage to frozen enemies all the time, so again, you want this. Go with the flow. Whenever Amara freezes an enemy, she gains increased movement speed and weapon damage for a short time. Again, we're going to be proccing this constantly, so this is a good call. Combo Breaker. Killing an enemy with melee damage has a chance to reset Amara's action skill cooldown. This is just a nice quality of life one to take because we are going to be killing enemies with melee damage all the time, so it's good to help manage cooldowns. We are going to take 5 out of 5 in Joyful Freedom because we're going to be activating action skill. We want that melee damage. Again, we are going to be freezing everything. Melee gets an inherent, I believe, 300% bonus against frozen enemies, so you just need this. This is the natural choice. Body and Mind. This one was a confusing skill to me at first, and this is where I really need to thank Quag for stepping up on stream live in the middle of his own stream to answer my questions about how this skill worked, because this is one of the cornerstones of this build. It potentially could be the most important part of it. So thank you so much again to Quag. I'm going to leave one of those doofy card things up in the top corner so you guys can click on his video and go and check him out. It's up there. Click on it now. Right now. Coming down finally to the purple capstone, Clear the Mind. Kill skill. After killing an enemy, Amara ignores enemy's elemental damage resistance for a short time. This is just another nice quality of life one that allows us to just attack any enemies with whatever elements we want and not have to worry about mismatching the elements and not getting our full damage capacity. Alright, now we need to talk skills. We have our action skills, our augment, and then our element. So this is where the build kind of shines because you can do a number of different things with this build depending on how you configure these. However, my favorite way to do it, and the way that I recommend you play it in the spirit of, you know, how I came up with it as just a mobbing machine, is to use the Eternal Fist. Now, for those of you that don't know, when the Eternal Fist procs, it comes up, it phase locks your enemy. When you kill that enemy, Eternal Fist will fire off an orb to a hopefully nearby enemy, and then it'll grasp them as well. It will do this over and over again. I don't know how many times it'll do it, but it's a lot. Every time it does that, it will re-proc your action skill anointment on your shield, which in our case is going to be a Nova, either the Cryo Nova from the Frozen Heart, or if you are using a Stinger, the Stinger Nova. So what this means is that every time we kill an enemy that's been grasped, we get a free action skill activation, or an action skill start activation out of our shield. And I'm sure you can see where this is going. We can chain this over and over again to control entire crowds and just one-shot everything, because everything is frozen and we're meleeing it, and it's just awesome. Your whole screen gets crazy with ice and explosions, and it's just awesome. It's a ton of fun, and that's how I recommend you play this. However, if you really want to, you can go with Tandava, Reverberation, just a straight up phase slam. Any of these will work. You will still proc your shield and you will still freeze things. However, you're not going to get that chaining that Eternal Fist can give you. Now, the nice thing about using something like Reverberation is that you will do damage to enemies, and then we will get the extra bonus points from Laid Bare. So that's something to keep in mind. Is that you will get this extra 41.7% damage. So that's what I recommend you use for bosses. However, for general mobbing, Eternal Fist is so much fun. For our augment, we are going to use Expedite to keep our cooldowns as low as possible and to try to keep it so we're able to spam that shield over and over again. But with that being said, if you're managing your chain appropriately, we almost don't even need the blue capstone, because you can link a chain of Eternal Fist and Novas from enemy to enemy almost indefinitely if you manage it well enough. Like I said, I don't know what the limit is, but it's a lot. Like you can stretch one activation of that out over a very long time if you're really paying attention and careful about what you're doing. Finally, coming over, we've got Cold Hearted. We're going to convert our action skill to cryo damage. Again, this fits in with the whole idea of freezing things. We're not always going to be able to freeze enemies with our cryo novas because maybe our action skill is on cooldown. So having that cryo damage there to apply to enemies to do it kind of the manual way is going to freeze them just as well. And that's kind of the name of the game of this whole build. Now, one thing you can get away with this build if you don't want to use the Frozen Heart is you can use the Stinger. The Stinger combined with a grenade like a, where would that go? Like a Mervtacular Hex with 500% cryo efficiency can do wonders. It's almost as reliable as a Frozen Heart in some situations, but not always. The Frozen Heart is pretty much a guarantee freeze, and the Stinger with a high cryo efficiency build is like an 85-90% guarantee kind of thing. I feel like it does more base damage overall because of the bonuses from the Stinger, but if we're here to freeze reliably, then that's the thing. But I mean, you can play with either and see what you like better. Alright, so as far as play style and rotation goes, basically what we're doing is we're spawning into an area. In this case, it's True Guardian Takedown, and we're going to find the weakest or easiest to kill enemy that we can. The reason that we need to do that is because in our purple tree, Body and Mind is going to be a kill skill, and we need Body and Mind. Body and Mind is the skill that scales along with URAD properly and is dependent on the number of projectiles that our face puncher is going to have. So we're going to have 14 instances of properly scaled Body and Mind, but it's a kill skill, so we have to get a kill in order to do that, and the same goes with Clear the Mind. So we're going to spawn into the area. We're going to go pick out the weakest enemy that we can find. Probably going to be one of these guys. Alright, you know what? Let's just go into a crowd and see what we can do. Here we go. So, I just grasped this first enemy with Eternal Fist. Now watch what happens. everything around me is freezing, and you just saw 2 Eternal Fists spawn already, with a 3rd one up in the top right corner. Now after I track and kill that enemy, Eternal Fist grabs the next one. And it looks like our streak is ended. So you can see how this is an effective crowd control build, given the number of instances and novas that are proccing off of that 1 or 2 Eternal Fist pulls that I had. So what you want to do is you want to get your pull of Eternal Fist and kill that enemy, and then track it to the next enemy, so on and so forth. All of the cryo novas going off around you are going to damage enemies and keep them off of your back while you go and you search those targets out. Now, for this to work properly, you need to be really aggressive, like hyper aggressive, because we're playing with the Deathless. We have no method of healing ourselves. Everything just needs to die, because if it's dead, then it, hypothetically speaking, shouldn't be able to kill you. So between that and the novas coming off of your character and not where your grasp comes, you're going to want to get in nice and close with everybody. So don't be afraid to rush in and, get a little messy. If you get downed, which will happen, don't worry, because it's likely that a shield break also just occurred, in which case you're going to be surrounded by frozen enemies, you're going to be on the ground, and you've got huge bonuses to melee, so that should help you get back up. Where this build and this playstyle gets challenging is with bosses with little or no adds, in which case I recommend that you use the double phase cast and its piss grenade method that you saw at the very beginning of the video. Alright, that's it. You've seen the build, you've seen what it's made of, you've seen it in action. Hopefully you've got a good idea of what it can and can't do, and if it's your playstyle or not. Like I said, I think this is a fantastic mobbing build. It's a ton of fun, it's chaotic, it's fast-paced. I had a lot of fun making this one. I hope you guys have just as much fun playing with it. If you like the content that you saw here today, be sure to drop a like, follow, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And you can come and check me out live on Twitch Monday and Wednesday evenings, where I've been kind of dabbling with Borderlands again and might keep going with it a little more here. I want to thank everybody who watched this video for their support. I really do appreciate it. I'm just getting started in this whole content creation thing, and having the support of people who are interested in what I do really just means the world to me. So again, thank you so much, and stay tuned for more in the future.
Ghost.